The nightmare of living under the huts is not the chains you can see, but the invisible ones that bind your soul. On Nar Shaddaa, every breath costs something. The neon glow of hut propaganda bathes children's faces while their parents work loading docks under the watchful eyes of security droids that never sleep, never blink, never show mercy. I was born beneath that weight, as was my father before him. We survive by being unremarkable, invisible in our perfect mediocrity. But today, a hut administrator placed his hand on my shoulder and spoke my name, and now my family's fate hangs by a thread I cannot see. What would you sacrifice to keep your child safe in a world where even hope is taxed? I remember the weight, not just the gravity, though Nar Shaddaa has plenty for a moon, the weight of eyes watching, the weight of debt accumulating, the weight of knowing your children might be taken as payment for what you owe. I was born beneath that weight, as was my father before me. Some say the huts are not so different from the Empire, just more honest about their cruelty. I disagree. The Empire at least pretends to offer order. The huts offer only one certainty, obedience or death. The loading bay smelled of fuel residue and desperation. Sweat rolled down my back as I secured the last cargo container, careful not to jostle whatever contraband lay inside. We never asked what we were moving. Questions cost extra on Nar Shaddaa, and the price was rarely credits. Around me, fellow dockworkers moved with the same practiced urgency, eyes down, minds empty. The less you noticed, the longer you lived. A security droid clanked past, its photoreceptors scanning our work without emotion. The hut enforcers saved their organic muscle for collection or punishment. For routine supervision, droids were more efficient. They never grew tired, never felt pity, never looked the other way for a bribe too small. The droid paused at my station, and I felt my heart quicken. Worker. Designation RD47321. Your quota efficiency has decreased 7% since last cycle. I kept my face neutral. New shipment protocols. Extra security seals on every third container. The droid processed this. Unscheduled protocol changes require supervisor authorization. The loading floor went quiet. Workers slowed, not obviously, but enough that I noticed the shift in ambient sound. Nobody wanted to witness what happened next, but nobody dared move away. Attention could be interpreted as dissent. Dissent meant punishment for all. A voice cut through the silence. Authorization granted. Bib Narola stood at the threshold, a Twi'lek with skin the color of oxidized credits and eyes that never warmed even when he smiled. He was Gorka the hut's chief administrator for this sector. His presence meant either promotion or execution, with little room between. Our valued client requested additional precautions. Narola approached, inspecting my work with practiced disinterest. Cargo theft has increased 12% this quarter. He directed this at the droid, not me. I was merely the excuse for his appearance. You may proceed with normal operations. The droid moved on. The workers returned to their tasks. Only I remained frozen, because Narola had placed a hand on my shoulder. Contact from management was never casual, never meaningless. Ren Dalin. My name in his mouth sounded like an accusation. Gorka requests your presence tonight, 18th hour. The Emerald Spire. Questions bubbled up, but I swallowed them. I have family responsibilities. Narola smiled, showing teeth filed to points. I remember your daughter. Mira, yes? 8 standard years now. Still attending Education Block C-17? The threat needed no elaboration. 18th hour. The Emerald Spire. Excellent. His hand left my shoulder, but the weight remained. Dress appropriately. Gorka appreciates workers who understand their station. After he departed, nobody spoke to me. Their silence was not unkind, merely pragmatic. Association with the marked invited the same fate. I understood. I would have done the same. The rest of my shift passed in mechanical motions. My hands worked while my mind calculated options that did not exist. Refuse Gorka and lose everything. attend and lose something else, something unnamed but equally precious. The huts never summoned labor without purpose. We were resources to be used until depletion. The corridors from the spaceport to the residential sectors narrowed and darkened with each level descended. Upper levels gleamed with imported wealth and exported misery. The Undercity, where families like mine were housed, received only the runoff. Water laced with industrial chemicals, air recycled so many times it tasted like machine oil, light that flickered and failed on irregular intervals, carefully calculated to keep us disoriented. A public holoscreen played the same message that ran every hour. A hut spokesperson, a surgically altered human with a smile too wide for his face, extolled the benevolence of our masters. The glorious hut cartel provides opportunity for all who demonstrate loyalty and industry. Today alone, 17 families have been elevated to improved housing assignments based on exceptional service records. Nobody watched, nobody needed to. The message changed, but the meaning remained constant: serve or suffer. My residential block rose before me, a prefabricated stack of identical habitat units distinguished only by numerical designations. No decorations marked individual doors. Personalization implied ownership, and we owned nothing, not even ourselves. The turbolift rarely functioned, forcing residents to climb stairs that switchbacked through the structure. By design, I suspected. Tired workers had less energy for resistance. My unit was on the 37th floor. By the 20th, my legs burned. By the 30th, my lungs protested each breath. The air grew thinner as you ascended, another resource allocated based on productivity metrics. Those who contributed more received more. Simple hut economics. I paused on landing 34, not from fatigue but dread. Home meant facing my wife, Lyra, and explaining why I would miss our daughter's evaluation ceremony. Educational assessments determined future work assignments. Parents attended to demonstrate familial stability. Absence indicated dysfunction, which lowered placement scores. Another system carefully designed to maximize control. Voices echoed from above. I recognized the harsh cadence of collection agents. Someone had missed a payment. I pressed myself against the wall as 3 figures descended. 2 mercenaries in mismatched armor flanked a weeping Rhodian woman. Her wrists were bound with shock cuffs, her few possessions stuffed into a transparent evidence bag. As they passed, one mercenary noticed my averted gaze. "Problem, citizen?" His helmet speaker distorted his voice into something inhuman. "No problem." I stared at the ground. "Smart. Keep it that way." They continued downward, the Rhodians' soft sobs fading with distance. I waited until they were gone before continuing upward. 3 more flights brought me to my door. Inside, the habitat unit hummed with the sounds of modest living. A food processor chirped its completion cycle. The environmental unit clicked as it struggled to maintain habitable conditions. And beneath it all, the sound that made this place home despite everything. Mira laughed at something her mother had said. Lyra noticed me first. Her smile faltered slightly as she read my expression, but she recovered quickly for Mira's benefit. "Your father is home. Show him what you practiced." Mira turned, her face luminous with excitement. She wore her school uniform, pressed and spotless despite having been patched multiple times. "Papa, I memorized all 37 hut business regulations for junior associates, even the subclauses." I forced brightness into my voice. "That is impressive. Let me hear." As she recited rules designed to ensure she would never escape this life, I met Lyra's eyes over her head. My wife knew me too well. She saw the summons written in the tension of my shoulders. She understood its implications without explanation. The huts had noticed us. Nothing good ever followed. Mira finished her recitation with a ceremonial bow, exactly as instructed by her teachers. "Prosperity flows to those who serve with diligence and loyalty." "Well done," I said, meaning it. Excellence within the system was her only protection. "Your instructors will be impressed tomorrow." "You will both be there," she said, not a question but a statement of unshakable childhood certainty. Saril said her father earned a merit bonus when she scored highest in computational applications. Lyra intervened smoothly. "Dinner is ready. Mira, prepare the table." When our daughter moved to the kitchen alcove, Lyra stepped closer, her voice barely audible. "What happened?" "Gorka. The Emerald Spire. 18th hour." Her face remained composed, but her hand found mine, fingers interlacing with desperate strength. "Why?" "I was not informed." "The evaluation ceremony." "I know." I squeezed her hand, then released it as Mira returned. "I will try to attend both." We both recognized the impossibility. Huts kept people waiting deliberately, asserting dominance through control of time itself. Even if the meeting was brief, the Emerald Spire was located in the upper levels. Travel between sectors required permissions, inspections, delays engineered to remind us of our place. I would miss my daughter's ceremony. Her placement scores would suffer, her future options would narrow further, all by design. Dinner consisted of protein rations supplemented with hydroponically grown vegetables, a luxury afforded by Lyra's careful management of our resources. We ate as if nothing were wrong, discussing Mira's studies and avoiding mention of tomorrow's conflicting obligations. After the meal, Mira completed her daily educational reinforcement exercises while Lyra and I cleaned up. "Could you claim illness?" Lyra suggested quietly. "Send me to Gorka instead? You know they would verify. Medical scans at every checkpoint." There must be something. I had spent the entire journey home considering alternatives. Each led to the same conclusion. If I refuse the summons, we lose everything. If I send you in my place, it suggests disrespect. There is only compliance. Her eyes hardened with a familiar anger. Not at me, but at our circumstances. There is always choice. Not for us, not here. I took her hands in mine. "I will speak with Mira's instructors. Explain the situation. Perhaps they will make an accommodation." We both knew they wouldn't. The system was designed to eliminate exceptions. Accommodation implied flexibility, which implied freedom. The huts allowed neither. Later, after Mira had gone to sleep in the habitat's single bedroom, Lyra helped me prepare for the summons. My only formal attire was a dark grey tunic with the insignia of Gorka's shipping operation discreetly emblazoned on the collar. The garment had belonged to my father, worn to similar summonses throughout his life of service. He had died wearing it, his body discovered in an alley after a collection dispute. The official report cited natural causes. Nobody questioned it publicly. "What do you think they want?" Lyra asked, smoothing the fabric across my shoulders. "More work, different work." "It doesn't matter. It matters if it takes you away from us." I turned to face her. "Nothing will take me from you and Mira." Others have said the same, made the same promises. Her voice trembled slightly. "Remember the Hadriel family? 3 levels down?" I remembered. The father had been summoned, had returned changed, had begun working irregular hours, had stopped speaking of his family. Within a month, his wife and children had been relocated to the outer colonies. "Labor reassignment," the report said. Nobody ever heard from them again. "I am not Hadriel," I insisted. "I will return to you, always." Lyra nodded, not in agreement but acceptance of my need to believe this. She reached up and unfastened the slim leather cord she wore around her neck. From it dangled a small stone, unremarkable except for the faint phosphorescent glow that emanated from within its crystalline structure. It had been her mother's, and her grandmother's before that, passed down through generations. "Take this." She looped it around my neck, tucking the stone beneath my tunic. "For protection." I started to protest that I couldn't take her family heirloom, but she pressed her fingers to my lips. "It has always returned to the women in my family. It will bring you back to me." I kissed her then, trying to impart strength neither of us possessed. When we separated, the chrono on the wall indicated 17th hour, time to leave if I hope to arrive punctually. "Tell Mira I will do everything possible to attend her ceremony." Lyra nodded. She knows you would never abandon her willingly. The word hung between us, unspoken but understood, willingly. As if choice had anything to do with life under Hutt dominion, I descended through the habitat block and crossed the public concourse toward the transit hub. The evening shift workers moved in the opposite direction, their expressions echoing the same resigned exhaustion I felt. The transit hub operated on a strict schedule. Miss your departure slot, and you waited for the next, with appropriate penalties for tardiness at your destination. The nearest agent scanned my identification chip without interest. Destination? Upper commercial sector, the Emerald Spire. His eyes flicked upward, reassessing me with faint surprise. Workers from my sector rarely traveled upward without escort. Authorization? I transmitted the summons code Narola had forwarded to my work account. The agent verified it, then gestured toward a separate loading area where a smaller transport waited. Priority clearance. Board immediately. The transport held only 3 other passengers, all similarly dressed in formal attire bearing corporate insignia. Nobody spoke. Privacy partitions separated each seat, preventing conversation. The windows darkened as we ascended, another calculated deprivation. The underclasses were not permitted views of the worlds above, lest we develop aspirations beyond our station. The journey took 23 minutes. When the transport doors opened, the contrast physically staggered me. After a lifetime in the filtered gloom of the lower levels, the illumination of the upper commercial district assaulted my senses. Everything gleamed. Polished stone floors, crystal viewports overlooking the cityscape, plants, actual living plants, arranged in decorative patterns along the walkways. A protocol droid approached as I stepped from the transport. Worker designation RD47321. Please follow me. I complied, conscious of the stares from genuinely wealthy patrons who recognized a laborer by his gait and posture, despite the formal attire. We traversed the main concourse, passed through a series of security checkpoints where scanners catalogued every aspect of my person, and finally arrived at a private turbo lift. You will be expected to kneel upon entering His Excellency's presence, the droid instructed. Speak only when addressed directly. Keep your answers brief and deferential. Maintain a distance of no less than 3 meters unless invited closer. Standard protocols for Hutt audiences. Understood. One final instruction. His Excellency has additional guests this evening. You will not acknowledge them unless specifically introduced. Violations of protocol will result in immediate termination. The turbolift ascended smoothly, its transparent walls offering vertiginous views of Nar Shaddaa's endless urban canyons. Despite myself, I stared. From this height, the perpetual smog created an ethereal effect, refracting light into colors I had never seen from below. Beauty existed even here, though never for us. The Emerald Spire occupied the upper 50 floors of a towering structure that pierced the cloud layer. Named for the green-tinted transparent steel of its exterior, it housed Gorka's business operations, entertainment venues, and private residences. Few workers ever saw its interior. Fewer still returned to speak of it. The turbolift opened directly into an expansive chamber decorated in a style that suggested wealth without revealing its true extent. Hutts understood the value of restraint in certain settings. Business was conducted amid calculated austerity. Pleasure demanded excess. This room served the former purpose. Gorka the Hutt occupied a raised platform at the chamber's center. Unlike the garish thrones of holofilm depictions, he rested on a simple gravity sled that accommodated his enormous bulk while allowing mobility. Bib Narola stood at his side, along with 2 guards armed with weapons too valuable for mere intimidation. As instructed, I knelt 3 meters from the platform, eyes downcast. Ren Darlin. Gorka spoke Huttese, the translator droid beside him rendering his words into basic. Your record shows consistent adequacy, neither exceptional nor deficient. You have maintained the same productivity metrics for 7 standard years. I remained silent, recognizing that no question had been asked. This is unusual, Gorka continued. Most workers show variance, improvement or decline. You have cultivated perfect mediocrity. Still no question, still no response required. Look at me, Rendalin. I raised my eyes. Huts were not beautiful by any conventional standard, but Gorka possessed a certain awful magnificence. His hide rippled with subtle patterns of green and gold. His eyes, large and penetrating, reflected a cold intelligence that assessed value with merciless precision. Do you know why perfect mediocrity interests me? A question. No, Excellency. Because it requires extraordinary control. To never excel. To never fail. To maintain the exact center of all possible performance outcomes, this suggests either profound laziness or uncommon intelligence. I said nothing. Either interpretation could prove fatal. Gorka's massive head tilted slightly. You have a family, one child. Your wife works in hydroponics management. Your living expenses consistently consume 97% of your combined income, leaving precisely enough for emergencies as defined by cartel housing regulations. Your debts are exactly proportional to your potential earning capacity. He paused, waiting. When I offered nothing, he continued. In other words, Rendalin, you have engineered your entire existence to occupy the perfect center of the system, visible enough to be accounted for. Invisible enough to avoid attention. I swallowed. I serve as required, Excellency. Indeed. Gorka's massive arms gestured toward the viewports. Do you know what I see when I look across my domain, Rendalin? Prosperity, Excellency. A sound emerged from Gorka that might have been laughter. An acceptable answer. Diplomatic. Safe. I see resources. Moving, breathing resources that consume and produce in measurable quantities. Some resources attempt to conceal their true value, believing mediocrity protects them from exploitation. The stone beneath my tunic felt suddenly heavier, as if responding to the danger. Gorka continued. Your true value has been discovered, Rendalin. Not by me, but by associates with specialized needs. He gestured, and a door opened behind me. I did not turn, remembering the protocol droid's warning about acknowledging other guests. You may face our associates, Gorka permitted. I turned slowly. Two figures stood in the doorway. Human, or near enough to pass for human at a distance. They wore simple dark clothing without insignia or identification. Their faces betrayed no emotion. Only their eyes suggested something amiss, too focused, too calculating, like targeting computers disguised as biological organs. These representatives require a courier, Gorka explained. Someone unremarkable, someone who attracts no notice. Someone with your particular talents for mediocrity. I am a dock worker, Excellency. You are what I designate you to be, Gorka corrected, without anger, stating fact. From this moment, you will serve as courier between my organization and our associates. You will continue your regular duties as cover. You will tell no one of this arrangement, including family members. Compliance will be rewarded with increased comfort allowances for your habitat unit. Non-compliance will result in family dissolution. Family dissolution. The euphemism for separating family members through strategic reassignment. Children to education camps, parents to distant outposts. Connections severed permanently. The threat required no elaboration. I understand, Excellency. Excellent. Gorka nodded to the silent figures. They will provide operational details. You are now their resource as well as mine. Serve with appropriate diligence. The dismissal was clear. I rose, bowed deeply, and followed the silent figures through the door from which they had emerged. It led to a smaller chamber, spartanly furnished with a single table and 3 chairs. One figure gestured for me to sit. I complied. You will be contacted through existing channels, the first figure said. Male, with an accent I could not place. Work orders that contain embedded instructions. The word pattern will identify relevant communications. What will I be transporting? The second figure, female, placed a small device on the table, cylindrical, no larger than my thumb. Information, nothing more. That is all I need to know? That is all you are permitted to know. The male placed a reader on the table. Your authorization code. Commit it to memory. The device will delete after first viewing. I activated the reader. A sequence of numbers and glyphs appeared. I studied them, understanding that my life and my family's safety depended on perfect recall. Once memorized, I deactivated the device. As promised, it emitted a soft tone and went dark. Initial contact will occur within 3 standard days, the female said. Resume normal operations until then. Any deviation from established patterns will be interpreted as rejection of terms. I have a daughter's evaluation ceremony tomorrow, I said. My absence would constitute a deviation from normal patterns. They exchanged glances, communicating silently in some private language of subtle expressions. Attend, the male finally said. Family maintenance is part of your cover profile. Relief flooded through me, though I kept my face neutral. Thank you. Do not mistake operational necessity for benevolence, the female warned. You were chosen for your predictability. Maintain it. They provided no further instructions. A different protocol droid appeared to escort me back to the transit hub, where I boarded a transport returning to the lower levels. As we descended, I touched the stone beneath my tunic, drawing comfort from its faint warmth. I had survived the audience. I would attend Mira's ceremony. For tonight, these victories were enough. The habitat block was silent when I returned, the hour too late for anything but sleep. I moved quietly through the darkened main room, but Lyra waited in the bedroom doorway. She said nothing, simply opened her arms. I went to her, and we held each other in the darkness. I can attend the ceremony, I whispered. But there is a cost. Tell me. I hesitated. Gorka's instructions had been explicit. Tell no one. Additional duties. Different duties. Her body tensed. Her body tensed, like the Hadril family. No, I insisted, though I had no way to know if this was true. Regular shifts continue, just additional tasks. What kind of tasks? Courier work, information transport. Lyra pulled back slightly, studying my face in the dim light. Information for who? I shook my head. I cannot say more. Please do not ask. She understood then. The danger extended to her as well. Knowledge was liability. Will you be safe? Yes. I spoke with confidence I did not feel. I was chosen for my unremarkable nature. There is safety in being overlooked. She touched the cord around my neck, finding the stone beneath my tunic. It protected you. I could not explain that nothing had protected me. That I had simply been repurposed rather than discarded. That our lives now hung on my ability to transport information whose nature I did not know for people whose identities remained concealed. Instead, I said, we should sleep. Tomorrow is important for Mira. We lay together in the narrow bed, careful not to disturb our daughter who slept against the wall. In the darkness, Lyra whispered, there is always choice. I pretended to be already asleep. I could not bear to tell her she was wrong. The education sector occupied a purpose-built structure near the administrative complex. Unlike the residential blocks, it featured cosmetic embellishments designed to impress visiting officials and reinforce institutional authority. Columns flanked the entrance. Propaganda displays highlighted successful graduates now serving in elevated capacities. The implied message required no subtlety. Conform and advance, resist and remain. Mira walked between us, her excitement evident in the occasional skip that interrupted her otherwise perfect posture. She had spent an extra 20 minutes preparing her uniform, polishing the small merit insignia she had earned through diligent compliance. Her evaluation portfolio, a datapad containing 7 standard years of academic performance metrics, gleamed in its protective case. Instructor Venn said, I might qualify for accelerated administrative training, she confided, voice low to avoid appearing boastful before classmates who passed us on the concourse. If my evaluation scores reach 94th percentile. Lyra squeezed her shoulder. You have studied diligently. The results will reflect your effort. And both my parents are attending, Mira added, pride unmistakable. That adds 5 points to the family stability assessment. I exchanged glances with Lyra over Mira's head. We had not told her about my summons, nor the new arrangement that had followed. Children in the system learned early that certain topics remained undiscussed. Survival depended on strategic ignorance. The evaluation hall echoed with the murmur of hundreds of conversations as families gathered before the ceremony. Instructors moved among the crowd, identifiable by their green uniforms and rigid posture. One approached our family, datapad extended. Student designation MD 47321, she addressed Mira. Preliminary assessments indicate high performance probability. Both parental units present. Family stability coefficient at maximum threshold. Mira beamed. Thank you, instructor. Report to preparation area 7. Parental units, proceed to observation section 12. We embraced Mira briefly, careful to maintain appropriate public restraint, then watched as she joined her classmates in the designated area. The instructor remained, her attention now focused on me. Worker designation RD 47321. Your presence was uncertain according to administrative projections. I kept my expression neutral. My obligations are arranged to prioritize family stability as required by cartel regulations. Indeed, she made a notation on her datapad. Proceed to observation section 12. The evaluation ceremony followed a format unchanged for generations. Students demonstrated mastery of cartel-approved subjects, from computational science to loyalty recitation. Mira performed flawlessly, her answers clear and confident, her posture exemplary. When the individual assessments concluded, families waited, while instructors calculated final scores and advancement recommendations. Lyra and I stood among other parents in the designated waiting area, our conversation limited to appropriate topics: weather variances, work quotas, nutrition allowance adjustments, the expected script of public discourse. A subtle vibration against my wrist interrupted our performance of normalcy. My work communicator, signaling an incoming message, I checked it discreetly. A routine work order for tomorrow's shift, but certain words appeared slightly bolder than others. The pattern activation, exactly as my new associates had described. Is something wrong? Lyra asked, noting my momentary distraction. Scheduling update, I said, which was technically true. Nothing that affects today. Before she could question further, the announcement system chimed. Evaluation results are prepared for distribution. Families will proceed to designation areas in orderly fashion. We joined the controlled movement toward the results distribution center. Families received their children's assessments privately, another calculated system designed to prevent communal celebration or commiseration. Success belonged to the cartel. Failure remained private shame. Mira waited for us in a small chamber where an instructor stood by with her final evaluation. Her face betrayed nothing, trained to mask emotion until given permission to express appropriate response. The instructor activated a hollow projection displaying Mira's results. Numbers and rankings materialized in the air between us. Lyra gasped softly. I remained still, processing the implications. Student designation MD 47321 has achieved 97th percentile ranking, the instructor announced. Qualification for accelerated administrative training is approved. Family stability assessment contributes maximum coefficient. Congratulations are warranted. Only then did Mira smile, the expression carefully modulated to show pride without arrogance. Thank you, instructor. I will serve with diligence and loyalty. Family unit acknowledgement is permitted, the instructor said, stepping back to allow a moment of controlled celebration. We embraced our daughter, communicating through touch what words could not safely express. Pride. Relief. Love constrained but undiminished. Accelerated training begins in 14 standard days. The instructor informed us. Residential reassignment may be required depending on scheduling requirements. Lyra's hand tightened on my arm. Residential reassignment? Administrative trainees often require proximity to central education facilities. The instructor explained. Family cohabitation exceptions are evaluated on individual basis. The implications struck with physical force. Mira's success might separate her from us. Another calculated system design, achievement as potential punishment, advancement as threat. We will make any adjustments necessary to support her training, I said, the expected response. Excellent. The instructor made a final notation. Dismissal authorized. Regular academic schedule resumes tomorrow. As we departed the education complex, Mira walked with new confidence. The future had opened slightly, offering possibilities beyond dockwork or hydroponics management. Lyra and I maintained appropriate parental pride, while silently calculating the new dangers that accompanied opportunity. Perhaps we could request a reassignment to housing near the central education facilities, Lyra suggested as we approached our residential block, based on Mira's achievement. Perhaps, I agreed, though we both knew such requests rarely succeeded without considerable influence or bribery beyond our capacity. That evening, we celebrated in the private safety of our habitat unit. Lyra prepared a special meal, supplementing our regular rations with flavor enhancers saved for significant occasions. Mira received permission to delay her standard educational reinforcement exercises for one night. After she went to bed, exhausted from the day's emotional demands, Lyra and I examined the coded work order in the darkness of the main room. "Can you decode it?" she asked. I shook my head. The pattern only identifies it as a communication from them. The actual instructions are embedded somewhere. Times, locations, contact protocols. What happens when you complete the first assignment? There will be others. This much seemed certain. Regular intervals, I suspect. Lyra was silent for a long moment. The Hadrill family completed 3 courier assignments before they disappeared. You don't know that. Nobody knows what happened to them. Workers talk. Her voice hardened. Especially in hydroponics. We spend hours alone with the growing systems. Information circulates. I wanted to dismiss her concerns, but the parallel was undeniable. Another unremarkable family. Another courier assignment. Another disappearance explained away as routine reassignment. What choice do we have? I asked finally. Lyra took my hands in hers. We leave. Tonight. Take Mira and find passage off-world. With what resources? To what destination? Under whose protection? I squeezed her hands gently. The Hutts control every transport, every credit transaction, every identity verification. We would be identified before reaching the spaceport. Then we find another way, the Undercity, the smuggler networks. And pay them how? With what? Our organs. Mira's future? I shook my head. We would trade one form of slavery for another, with no guarantee of improvement. Lyra released my hands. So we simply comply. Transport their information. Pretend nothing has changed. Wait for the day they decide we know too much or have outlived our usefulness. No, I said, more forcefully than intended. We survive, day by day. We gather resources. We identify opportunities. We prepare for the moment when choice becomes possible. She studied me in the dim light. And if that moment never comes? I had no answer that would satisfy either of us. The next day, I reported for my regular shift at the loading docks. The encoded work order had, after careful analysis, revealed instructions embedded in seemingly routine cargo handling protocols. A specific container, a specific access code, a data crystal to be retrieved and delivered to a location in the mid-level commercial district during my midday nutrition break. The container arrived as scheduled. I approached it alone, entering the access code with practiced casualness. Inside, Beneath a false panel exactly where the instructions indicated lay a data crystal no larger than my thumbnail. I pocketed it during a moment when security cameras rotated away, a blind spot I had never noticed before but somehow knew to anticipate. My nutrition break arrived. I departed the loading dock through the worker exit, joining the stream of laborers seeking sustenance in the designated consumption areas. Instead of entering the nearest facility, I continued walking, following a route that appeared random but adhered precisely to the embedded instructions. The mid-level commercial district catered to administrative workers and security personnel, those who served the cartel directly but lacked true authority. Shop fronts displayed modest luxuries unattainable for dock workers, food that had never been processed into ration bars, clothing without corporate insignia, small comforts that created the illusion of freedom. My destination was a public information terminal located in a busy thoroughfare. I approached it, ostensibly to check transportation schedules. The terminal prompted for identification. I placed my hand on the scanner, but instead of entering my actual destination, I entered a specific sequence of characters that corresponded to nothing in the system. The terminal flickered briefly. A small compartment opened beneath the input panel. I deposited the data crystal and closed the compartment. The terminal reset, returning to its standard interface. I entered a legitimate destination query, received the expected schedule information, and departed. The entire exchange took less than 30 seconds. No one noticed. No one cared. I was simply another worker consulting a public terminal, my very unremarkability serving as perfect camouflage. I returned to the loading docks, resuming my shift as if nothing had occurred. The rest of the day passed without incident. I completed my assigned tasks, maintained appropriate productivity metrics, and departed at the designated time. Nothing to distinguish this day from countless others. Nothing except the knowledge that I had taken the first irreversible step along a path whose destination remained hidden. That evening, as our family completed our regular domestic routine, a notification arrived on the Habitat Unit's communication system. An official message from the Education Administration. Due to exceptional performance metrics, student designation MD 47321 is granted priority residential reassignment. Family unit transfer approved to residential block E23, effective within 7 standard days. Congratulations on this advancement opportunity. Mira's eyes widened. Block E23? That's in the mid-level sector. The administrative families live there. Lyra and I exchanged glances, attempting to mask our confusion with appropriate gratitude. Residential reassignments typically required substantial bribes or decades of accumulated merit. Yet here was approval granted immediately after Mira's evaluation, without request or application. "This is an exceptional opportunity," I said, the expected paternal response. "Your academic achievement has created advancement for our entire family." Mira beamed with pride, but Lyra's eyes held a question I could not safely answer. This was not random. Nothing under Hut rule happened by chance. Our sudden elevation, connected somehow to my new role, though whether as reward or further entanglement remained unclear. "When can we view our new habitat unit?" Lyra asked, her voice carefully neutral. "The message indicates a preliminary inspection is scheduled for tomorrow," I noted, reading further into the notification. "During standard mid-shift break." Another coincidence that felt engineered. The timing corresponded exactly with when I would be away from the loading docks, delivering whatever information lay encoded in tomorrow's work order. Someone was coordinating these events with disturbing precision. That night, after Mira had gone to sleep, Lyra and I whispered in the darkness of the main room. "This isn't normal," she insisted. "No family advances an entire residential tier based on a child's academic performance, not without connections or resources we don't possess." I know, I could not pretend otherwise. It must be related to my new assignment. A bribe, payment for services, or ensuring we have more to lose if I fail. The realization struck with cold certainty. Elevated status means elevated scrutiny. Privileges extended can be privileges revoked. Lyra's hand found mine in the darkness. Another form of control, always. I squeezed her fingers, but it also means better living conditions for Mira, cleaner air, better nutrition options. Educational resources currently beyond her reach. At what cost? I had no answer that would comfort either of us. The next day unfolded according to the unseen orchestrator's design. My work order contained another embedded message, another container, another data crystal, another drop location, this time in the upper commercial sector where wealth displayed itself without restraint. The delivery proceeded without incident. I was invisible among the commerce and activity, a worker on legitimate business, attracting no notice. The perfect courier, just as Gorka had observed. Upon completion, I made my way to the Proofkrasas residential administration complex, where Lyra and Mira waited for our scheduled inspection of the new habitat unit. Block E23 rose before me, its exterior clean and well-maintained, a stark contrast to our current residence. Security personnel nodded as I approached, verifying my identification without the suspicion typically directed at workers from lower sectors. My new status already registered in their systems, granting access where previously I would have been detained or rejected. Lyra and Mira stood in the atrium, accompanied by a residential administrator whose tailored uniform suggested authority beyond mere building management. All three turned as I approached. Worker designation RD47321. The administrator greeted me. "Congratulations on your family's advancement. I am Supervisor Tarek. I will personally oversee your transition." I nodded, appropriate gratitude without excessive display. "Thank you, Supervisor. Your family has already viewed the communal facilities. I was about to show them your assigned unit." We followed him to a turbo lift that functioned perfectly, unlike the frequently malfunctioning units in our current block. It ascended smoothly to the 17th floor, a significant improvement over our previous 37th floor assignment. Even this detail communicated our changed status. Higher value residents received lower floor assignments, reducing transit time and physical exertion. The habitat unit itself rendered Mira momentarily speechless, twice the size of our current residence. 3 separate sleeping chambers instead of 1. Environmental controls that maintained consistent temperature and humidity. Viewport windows that actually displayed the outside world instead of simulated scenery. Most shocking of all, a private hygiene station instead of communal facilities shared with an entire floor. As befits a family with an accelerated administrative trainee, Supervisor Tarek explained, these accommodations include enhanced nutritional options, dedicated educational reinforcement systems, and priority medical response protocols. He demonstrated each feature with practiced efficiency. The food preparation unit stocked with actual ingredients rather than mere ration components. The communications system with expanded access to information networks. The environmental controls that could be adjusted according to personal preference rather than centrally mandated settings. Your belongings will be transferred during your next work shift, Tarek concluded. Occupancy begins in 3 standard days. Your productivity requirements remain unchanged, but your compensation structure has been adjusted to accommodate increased living expenses. The final statement contained the truth beneath the facade of advancement. Our obligations would grow precisely in proportion to our privileges. The system recalibrated perfectly, ensuring we remained perpetually indebted to our benefactors. After Tarek departed, Mira explored the habitat with undisguised wonder, opening storage compartments and testing various systems. Lyra and I stood by the viewport, speaking quietly while watching our daughter's excitement. "This doesn't change anything," Lyra murmured. "The cage is more comfortable, but still a cage." "It changes everything for Mira," I countered. "Her future options expand significantly from here. At the cost of your safety. Our freedom. We never had freedom to lose." Lyra turned to face me fully. "What happens when they ask you to deliver something worse than information? When the risk increases beyond simple courier work?" I will handle each task as it comes. And if you can't? If compliance becomes impossible? I had no answer that wouldn't betray my growing fear. The transition to our new residence occurred exactly as scheduled. One moment we inhabited the cramped confines of lower-tier housing. The next, we occupied the relative luxury of administrative class accommodations. The physical relocation required minimal effort on our part, cartel efficiency at its most impressive when serving its own interests. Mira adapted immediately, her inherent resilience embracing the improved circumstances without question. Lyra and I maintained appropriate gratitude in public while privately remaining vigilant for the inevitable cost hidden within this apparent advancement. My courier assignments continued at irregular but predictable intervals. Always data crystals, always public drop locations, always timed to avoid disruption to my regular work duties. A parallel existence layered atop my established identity, visible only to those who had engineered it. Weeks passed. Mira began her accelerated training, returning each evening with stories of educational opportunities previously unimaginable. Lyra received a corresponding promotion within hydroponics management, her expertise suddenly recognized and valued after years of deliberate oversight. Our family's ascension appeared seamless, unremarkable to outside observation, exactly as designed. Then came the assignment that changed everything. The work order arrived with familiar embedded patterns, but the instructions deviated from established protocol. Instead of retrieving a data crystal from a cargo container, I was directed to collect a package from a specific storage unit in the spaceport's restricted section. Instead of delivering during daylight hours to a public location, I was instructed to make the transfer at 23rd hour in an abandoned manufacturing sector. Most concerning of all, the final instruction included contingency protocols in case of interference, evasion tactics, alternative delivery methods, security countermeasures, the language of anticipated conflict rather than routine information transfer. I stood in the loading bay, staring at the work order, trying to maintain normal appearance while processing the implications. This was no longer simple courier work. This was something that carried risk beyond administrative penalty, something that might justify the elevated status granted to my family, not as reward but as insurance against failure. Worker designation RD47321. The voice startled me from my thoughts. A security droid, its photoreceptors focused on my face. You have remained stationary for 7.3 minutes. Productivity interruption registered. I tucked the datapad into my pocket. Equipment verification. Resuming normal operations. The droid processed this explanation, then moved on to continue its patrol. I returned to my assigned tasks, mind racing beneath a facade of routine compliance. The decision before me contained no favorable outcomes. Refuse the assignment and risk everything we had gained, possibly our lives. Accept it and step further into a world whose dangers I only dimly understood. By shift end, I had reached no resolution. I returned to our new habitat unit, where Mira greeted me with excitement about her day's achievements, and Lyra prepared a meal using actual fresh ingredients, a luxury still novel enough to remark upon. I participated in our family's evening routine with mechanical precision, present in body but absent in mind. After Mira retired to her private sleeping chamber, Lyra confronted me in the main room. "Something's wrong," she said, not a question but a statement of observed fact. "What is it?" I considered lying, maintaining the separation between my courier activities and our home life, but the new assignment had altered the equation. The risk now extended beyond me alone. "A new delivery," I explained quietly, though our habitat unit was supposedly secure from surveillance. Different protocol, different location, different risk assessment. Understanding darkened her expression. "They're escalating." "Yes." "Can you refuse?" "You know the answer." She nodded slowly. "When?" "Tonight, 23rd hour." Lyra moved to the viewport, staring out at the endless urban landscape of Nar Shaddaa. The mid-level view revealed both the gleaming towers of the upper sectors and the shadowed depths of the undercity, a perfect visual representation of the society that trapped us. "We could run," she suggested, not for the first time, "tonight, while they still believe you compliant. To where, with what resources, leaving would trigger immediate pursuit. We wouldn't reach the spaceport. Then complete this one last assignment, but use it to gain leverage. Information. Something we can trade for real freedom." The suggestion shocked me with its audacity. Trade with whom? The Hutts control everything. Not everything. Lyra turned back from the viewport. Not everyone. There are always competing interests, rival cartels, corporate entities, even legitimate authorities on some worlds. Spies, you mean? The realization struck with sudden clarity. You think I'm carrying intelligence? That my associates are agents of some outside power? It would explain the pattern, the secrecy, the escalation of risk. She wasn't wrong. The possibility had occurred to me as well, though I had avoided examining it too closely. Ignorance provided deniability. Knowledge created culpability. Even if you're right, I said carefully, contacting any competing interest would mean betraying Gorka. The consequences would be no different than if we attempted escape, or if you failed in your assignment, or if they simply decided we were no longer useful. Lyra stepped closer. At least this way we choose our fate rather than waiting for it to be imposed. 23rd hour approached. I moved through the darkened corridors of our residential block, my presence at this hour explained by the appropriate authorization codes provided in the work instructions. The night cycle security protocols differed from daytime operations, relying more heavily on automated systems than organic supervision. Another calculated efficiency. The spaceport's restricted section required additional access credentials, but these too had been provided. I navigated through service corridors and maintenance tunnels, avoiding main concourses where even at this hour activities continued. Nar Shaddaa never truly slept. It merely shifted operational priorities according to chronological designations. The storage unit appeared unremarkable. One of hundreds in a secondary cargo processing area, designated for temporary holding of shipments requiring special handling. I entered the access code, and the security field deactivated. Inside waited a single package, smaller than I had anticipated. A container approximately the size of my hand, sealed with recognition protocols keyed to my biometric signature. I placed my palm against the scanner. The container opened, revealing not a data crystal but a small device of unfamiliar design. No identifying markings, no obvious purpose. Nothing to indicate its importance or function. I secured it within the hidden pocket of my work uniform and resealed the storage unit. The abandoned manufacturing sector lay in a transitional zone between the mid and lower levels, an area once dedicated to droid production before operations relocated to more profitable locations. Now it housed only deactivated assembly lines and decaying infrastructure, officially condemned but never demolished. The perfect location for exchanges requiring absolute privacy. I approached the designated coordinates through a labyrinth of collapsed walkways and partially dismantled structures. No functional lighting illuminated my path. Only emergency backup systems, operating on minimal power, provided intermittent guidance through the darkness. The perfect setting for ambush or betrayal. A figure waited at the rendezvous point. Human in outline, features obscured by shadow and distance. Not one of my usual contacts. Someone new, someone unknown. The escalation extended to personnel as well as location. I stopped at the prescribed distance, neither retreating nor advancing. Verification sequence required. The figure stepped forward slightly, remaining partially concealed. The sunset yields to twilight's embrace. The expected response code. I relaxed marginally. Package secured as instructed. Show me. I removed the device from my hidden pocket, holding it where the figure could verify its presence without facilitating a sudden seizure. Trust extended only so far in these transactions. Place it on the ground between us, the figure directed, then step back. I complied, setting the device on a flat section of flooring, then retreating 3 steps as instructed. The figure approached, knelt to retrieve the package, then straightened with fluid grace that suggested professional training beyond civilian parameters. "Your services continue to meet expectations," the figure said, male voice now identifiable though the face remained obscured. "Return to your residence. Await further instructions." A routine exchange completed, my obligation fulfilled. Yet something in the figure's posture, some subtle tension, triggered instincts developed through a lifetime of survival under Hutt dominance. "Is there a problem?" I asked, preparing to depart but sensing unfinished business. The figure paused. "Why do you ask? You seem concerned." A soft sound might have been laughter. Perceptive, an unexpected quality in a courier. I observe, I deliver, I survive. Indeed. The figure moved slightly, allowing minimal illumination to reveal a portion of his face. Human, as I had guessed. Middle years. Features that suggested military background or similar disciplined existence. "Tell me, courier, do you know what you've been transporting?" Warning signals flared in my mind. This deviated from all previous protocols. I was instructed not to inquire. A wise policy. He studied me with unsettling intensity. "But tonight's package is different. Special." I remained silent, recognizing the danger in this conversation, but unable to simply walk away. The figure held authority I could not dismiss, representing powers whose reach extended beyond even Hutt influence. "You've been reliable," he continued. "Consistent, valuable, but circumstances have changed. Security protocols have been compromised." "Not by me," I said quickly, understanding the implied accusation. "No, not by you." He sighed, a sound of genuine regret. "Unfortunately, that distinction matters little at this point. Contamination extends to all assets in the operational chain." The meaning became horrifyingly clear. "My family will be handled according to standard containment procedures." His voice remained professionally detached. Quick, painless, humane. Panic surged through me, but I fought to maintain outward calm. There must be alternatives. Reassignment, memory suppression, anything. Those options were considered and rejected. A note of genuine sympathy entered his voice. "If it helps, know that the choice came from much higher authorities than myself. The information you've been carrying, its significance exceeds individual considerations. You can't just eliminate an entire family. There will be questions. Investigations." He shook his head. "On Nar Shaddaa? Under Hutt jurisdiction? Families disappear daily without explanation. Yours will be no different." The truth of his statement struck with physical force. We were nothing, expendable resources, traceless and forgettable. "When?" I asked, voice hollow. "It's already in motion." He checked a device on his wrist. "Your residence is scheduled for atmospheric purge in approximately 12 minutes. Standard containment protocol for compromised safe houses. Internal systems will register a catastrophic environmental system failure. Regrettable accident. Proper compensation will be provided to the building owners." 12 minutes. Not enough time to return. Not enough time to warn them. Not enough time for anything but the helpless knowledge of impending loss. "Why tell me this?" I demanded. "Why not simply eliminate me as well? Your final delivery required confirmation of receipt at command level." "Operational necessity." He shrugged slightly. "After that, your situation becomes unofficial, a loose end outside normal containment parameters." Understanding dawned. "You're offering me a choice." "Not officially. Nothing about this conversation exists in any operational record." "What choice? What choice?" He gestured vaguely toward the darkness surrounding us. "Disappear. Immediately. permanently. Use whatever skills you've developed to vanish beyond official notice. With sufficient head start and appropriate caution, you might establish a new identity on a distant world. Without my family, not a question but a statement of unbearable truth. That option no longer exists. Something broke inside me then, some final barrier between compliant servant and desperate husband and father. Some last remnant of the system's control over my actions and choices. No. The word emerged with quiet certainty. The figure tilted his head. No? I will not abandon my family. I will not accept your containment protocol. I will not disappear quietly into convenient obscurity. Then you choose elimination. His hand moved toward what I now recognized as a concealed weapon. Quick, painless, like your family. My family is not yet gone. I stepped forward, abandoning prescribed distance protocols. And neither am I. What happened next occurred with a clarity that defied my previous existence of careful mediocrity. I moved without conscious thought, driven by desperate purpose that transcended training or experience. The figure reacted with professional efficiency, weapon appearing in his hand with practiced speed, not fast enough. I struck first, a savage blow fueled by 8 years of loading cargo containers in Nar Shaddaa's punishing gravity. He staggered backward, weapon discharging harmlessly into darkness. I pressed forward, abandoning all pretense of civilized restraint. We grappled briefly, his technical skill matched against my raw desperation. Desperation prevailed. When it ended, I stood alone in the darkness, the figure motionless at my feet. I retrieved his weapon and communication device, then searched his body for anything useful. Identification credentials, access codes, currency in various denominations. The package I had delivered, still clutched in his lifeless hand, 9 minutes remaining, according to his timepiece. Not enough to reach my family through conventional means, but perhaps enough for something else. I activated his communication device, accessing protocols far beyond my authorization level. Command frequencies, emergency overrides, abort codes for operations in progress, information that could destroy worlds or save 3 insignificant lives on a forgotten moon. 7 minutes. I found what I needed. Containment, procedure, authorization codes, current operation designations, the specific protocol targeting my residence. I entered the abort sequence, hands steady despite everything. Error. Command authorization insufficient. Of course. The figure before me had been merely an operational asset, like myself. Important enough to confirm receipt, not important enough to countermand orders from above. 6 minutes. I searched for alternatives. The device contained operational maps, security protocols, surveillance overrides. Something caught my attention. The atmospheric control systems for our residential block. Not direct access, but a vulnerability. A maintenance backdoor created for operational convenience. 5 minutes. I redirected atmospheric purge protocols, targeting not my family's residence but the building's security center. A diversionary tactic. Create confusion. Trigger emergency protocols. Force evacuation. Command accepted. Implementation in progress. 4 minutes. I accessed the residential communication system, bypassing standard authorization using the figure's security credentials. Direct connection to my habitat unit. 3 minutes. The communication system activated. Lyra answered immediately, as if she had been waiting by the console. Ren? Where are you? No time. Emergency evacuation. Now. Take Mira. Go to the freight turbolift. Override code 7734 Alpha. It will take you to the maintenance level. Exit through waste processing. Security will be compromised for approximately 4 minutes. To her credit, she asked no questions. What about you? I'll find you. Central Market, lower commercial sector, the vendor who sells Hapan textiles. I love you. Go now. 2 minutes. I terminated the connection and destroyed the communication device. No time to return to my family through conventional routes. No guarantee the atmospheric purge had been fully redirected. No certainty that additional containment protocols weren't already in motion. I examined the package I had delivered, the device whose importance justified eliminating an entire family to maintain operational security. Whatever it contained represented leverage, information valuable enough to kill for, information potentially valuable enough to trade for 3 lives deemed expendable. 1 minute. I made my decision, activated the device using the figure's biometric signature, still viable despite his condition. The interface illuminated, revealing encrypted data beyond my comprehension but unmistakably significant. Military deployments, security codes, command structures, intelligence that could shift the balance of power between factions whose conflicts shaped the galaxy. 0 minutes. In the distance, alarms sounded, emergency protocols activated, confusion spreading through systems designed for perfect control. A brief window of opportunity created through desperate action. I moved through the darkness with new purpose, the device secured, the weapon ready, the dead figure left behind as silent testament to a system that valued information above lives. Ahead lay uncertainty, pursuit, the desperate hope of reunion with my family, the possibility of leveraging what I carried to secure something previously unimaginable. Freedom. Not just survival between carefully defined parameters. Not just existence within prescribed limitations. Actual choice. Actual agency. The opportunity to define our own path forward beyond the nightmare of living under systems that reduced people to resources. I had no illusions about the difficulty ahead. The enemies arrayed against us, the limited probability of success. But for the first time, possibility existed, where before there had been only the certainty of controlled existence. Somewhere in the lower commercial sector, Lyra and Mira would be making their way toward the designated meeting point. Somewhere beyond Nar Shaddaa, worlds existed where Hutt influence waned, where other powers might value what I carried enough to provide sanctuary in exchange. Somewhere ahead lay choice, purchased with blood and desperation. I moved forward into darkness, no longer the perfect center of all possible performance outcomes, no longer invisible through careful mediocrity. Something else entirely, someone else entirely, someone who had finally discovered what Lyra had always insisted existed, even under the crushing weight of Hutt dominion. Choice.